My 29F husband, 34M, is in the hospital after a suicide attempt. I see him tomorrow and I don't know what to say. If I hadn't come home early that Tuesday, Levi would be dead by now. We've been together for almost 5 years. I'm 29, he's 34. We live together. We've built a quiet little life filled with routines and dumb jokes and plans that felt exciting in their ordinariness. A second dog, possibly a move to a quieter estate in Ibadan, maybe kids if we ever got brave enough. We had even picked out baby names a few months ago while folding laundry. We laughed about which names sounded more presidential. Life felt fine, steady, normal. And he seemed fine. That's what haunts me the most. I didn't notice anything. No red flags. No pulling away. He made me tea on Monday night. He kissed me goodnight. He tickled my feet under the blanket. He even showed me a meme at 11 p.m. and said, "This one is so you." So when 2 of my Tuesday meetings got cancelled last minute, I figured I'd surprise him. I picked up shawarma on the way home and imagined us sitting in front of the TV watching YouTube clips. I even texted him, "Guess who's done early," but he didn't read it. The house was too quiet when I opened the door. At first, I thought maybe he was napping. Or out for a walk with our dog, Simba. But Simba greeted me at the door, tail wagging, leash still hanging on the hook. I called out, "Levi?" No response. That's when I noticed the bedroom door slightly ajar. I don't know what made my heart drop. Maybe it was the smell of vodka or the eerie stillness. I pushed the door open. He was on the bed, barely breathing. His skin was pale and clammy. There were 2 pill bottles on the floor, one empty. A half-drunk bottle of vodka was on the nightstand. I froze. My brain just stopped working. I remember screaming his name. I remember shaking him. His lips were slightly blue. I remember dialing 911, but I don't remember what I said. I don't remember the ride to the hospital. I just remember the EMT saying, "It was close." They told me he was unconscious for nearly 36 hours. He's stable now, physically at least, but he hasn't spoken much. They moved him to the psychiatric ward for evaluation. I called earlier today and they said he's been quiet. Withdrawn. They said I can visit him tomorrow. I've never been this scared in my life. I don't know what to say when I see him. Do I pretend I'm okay? Do I ask him why? Do I just sit there in silence? Do I scream? Cry? Do I act like this never happened? We live together. We sleep in the same bed. How did I not see this coming? How can someone be drowning next to you and you don't even notice? There was no note. No warning. Just a Tuesday afternoon that shattered everything. Hospitals have a way of making time feel like it's standing still. The air in the ICU was cold, too cold. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above me as I sat by Levi's bed, gripping the edge of my hoodie like it could somehow hold me together. He looked gone. Not dead, just not there. Tubes ran from his arms. Machines beeped in slow, steady rhythms that filled the silence. His skin was pale under the hospital lighting. His lips cracked. His eyes were closed, and his chest rose and fell like it wasn't even his own breath. I wanted to scream. But all I did was sit there, staring. How? How the hell did I miss this? We live together. We laugh. We cook pasta on Fridays and argue about who left the AC on. Just last weekend, we watched 3 hours of old Nollywood horror films and he made me popcorn in the microwave because I said I was too tired to adult. There were no signs. At least none I saw. But now, sitting here with the machines and antiseptic smells, I keep rewinding everything in my head. Did he pull away and I just didn't notice? Was he struggling silently while I talked about weekend errands and our neighbor's noisy generator? He looked so still, so broken, that it almost felt like I was staring at a stranger. I leaned forward and whispered, "Did you even plan to tell me goodbye?" Nothing. Not even a blink. My chest felt tight. I wanted to sob, but I couldn't even cry anymore. I was past tears. Just numb. After an hour, I left the hospital room and went back home, if you could even call it that anymore. The house felt haunted. Simba kept pacing by the door like he was waiting for Levi to walk in. I watched our wedding photos on the wall and felt like a fool. That night, I sat on the floor in the living room, surrounded by his things. I opened his phone, his laptop. No passwords. No hidden apps. No weird calls. No flirty messages. No financial red flags. Nothing. Just a man who looked fine. And wasn't. Was there someone else? Was he in debt? Was there something from his past haunting him? I checked everything. I wanted to find something, a reason, a motive, a crack I had ignored. But there was nothing. Just silence. Around 10 p.m., the hospital called. "He's stable," the nurse said gently. Still not talking much. But he opened his eyes today. I thanked her. Hung up. And sat there. Stable. Silent. Breathing. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that something inside Levi had already died. Psych wards are quieter than ICUs. No machines. No beeping. Just this strange, eerie calm that creeps under your skin and stays there. The walls are off-white, the floor is too clean, and there's this overwhelming sense of control. Like they're trying to keep the chaos out by trapping it inside. That's where I saw Levi again. Alive. Awake. But not really there. He sat on a stiff hospital chair when I walked in. His eyes were fixed on the window, though there was nothing out there but a pale courtyard and a rusting bench. His hands were on his lap, still. No twitching fingers. No head turn when I said his name. I smiled anyway. Fake. Awkward. It felt like I was meeting a stranger through glass. "I brought your slippers," I said quietly. "And, snacks. The orange soda you like. And that cocoa butter lotion you always steal from me." He nodded. Just once. I placed the bag on the table and sat across from him. I thought about hugging him, but my feet were heavy, and his body looked too fragile, like one wrong move and he'd vanish. After a long pause, he finally said something. "I'm sorry." Barely above a whisper. It was the way someone might apologize for forgetting to take the trash out. Not for. Almost dying. My throat tightened. I didn't cry. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking in my lap. I wanted to say so much. "Why didn't you tell me? How long have you felt like this? Why did you try to leave me?" But instead, I swallowed it all and said, "We'll talk, when you're ready." He nodded again. No eye contact. Just shame. So we sat there. Together. But not together. Him staring at nothing. Me staring at him. It was the most unbearable silence I've ever experienced. But in a way, it felt familiar, like I had been living in it without knowing. All those nights he smiled and nodded and said he was fine. Maybe this silence was hiding there too. Eventually, the nurse knocked and said visiting hours were over. I stood up slowly, picked up the now empty snack bag, and said, "I'm glad you're here, Levi. I really am." He looked at me then for just a second and I saw it. Shame, sadness, and something else. Guilt, maybe. Or emptiness. I walked back to the car with that image burned into my brain. The drive home was quiet. No radio. No music. Just the hum of tires on asphalt and the pounding in my head. I don't know what's broken inside him. But I know it's deep. And I don't know how to fix it. I just know I've never felt this alone while loving someone so much. I didn't expect to end up in therapy. But 3 days after my first visit to Levi in the psych ward, I found myself sitting across from a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, silently begging her to fix me. I feel betrayed, I finally admitted. It came out in a whisper, like I was confessing a sin. She didn't flinch. She just nodded. And then I said something I hadn't dared to say out loud before. He took all the pain and didn't even give me a chance to carry some. Because that's what it felt like. Like Levi had been walking around bleeding in places I couldn't see, and I was just smiling next to him, blind and useless. We'd been together for almost 5 years. We shared toothbrush drawers and inside jokes and Spotify playlists. I thought we shared everything. But he never gave me this. Not one piece of the burden. Not a clue. Not a warning. Just silence. And a body on the floor. In therapy, we talked about how society treats male pain, how men are told to man up, to be providers, protectors, anchors. Levi always was strong. Too strong, maybe. The kind of strong that looks normal on the outside but is rotting on the inside. Later that night, I found a small black notebook in the bottom drawer of his nightstand. I don't know why I opened it. I felt like I was intruding. But something in me needed answers. It wasn't a suicide note. Not even close. Just scribbles. Years old. Pages of ink and pain. Lines like, "It's exhausting pretending I'm okay all the time. I feel like an obligation, not a person. I don't want to die, but I don't want to be alive either." They were from before he met me. Before us. But still, they hurt. They painted a version of Levi I had never seen. A boy who was left behind too many times. Who had to bottle up pain because no one ever taught him how to release it safely. I sat on the floor of our bedroom and read every page like it was scripture. I cried. Quiet, ugly sobs that made my chest ache. And then, I whispered the words I've been carrying like a knife in my gut ever since I found him. If you had died, I would have buried half of me with you. It was the truth. I don't know if he'll ever understand how much he's intertwined in me. How much of my life now carries his name, his habits, his scent. I don't know if he still wants to live. But I know that, for now, I have to keep living enough for both of us. He finally spoke. His voice was slow, raspy, slurred from the meds, but steady enough to slice through me. I had been sitting by his hospital bed for 20 minutes, watching the dust dance in the sunlight streaking through the barred windows. I didn't expect anything. I was just there. Like a shadow. And then he whispered. "It wasn't you." I froze. "It was the weight of everything," he continued, eyes staring blankly at the wall. And I thought. Maybe I was just extra luggage. Extra luggage. Like a suitcase you don't really need but you drag along out of guilt. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears started soaking the sleeves of my hoodie. "I loved you," I said. "I love you. And you were just going to leave me here to find you like that?" He blinked slowly. His face didn't change. Just numb. I think that's what broke me more than anything. The emptiness. "You were going to let me come home and see you cold?" My voice cracked. I stood up. Pacing. "Were you even going to say goodbye? A note? Sorry, Amara? A post-it?" He didn't answer. Didn't apologize. Didn't fight. And I wanted a fight. I wanted yelling. Tears. Something to prove that he hadn't already died on the inside. "I hate you," I whispered. And that part hurt the most because it wasn't a lie. I hated what he had done to us. I hated that he'd rather disappear than talk to me. I hated that he made me feel like love wasn't enough. He turned his head slightly toward me just enough for our eyes to meet. Then he closed his eyes. No explanation. No defense. Just silence again. That's when I knew. The version of Levi I loved might never come back. As I walked out of the psych ward, my legs felt like they didn't belong to me. The world was loud, nurses talking, buzzers beeping, but I couldn't hear any of it. In my head, I just kept thinking one thing. You're still here. But I already feel widowed. They sent him home with a list of meds, a soft-spoken psychiatrist, and a brochure that read, "You're not alone." But I never felt lonelier. Levi was different. Not in the dramatic, crying all day way. That, I think I could have handled. This was worse. He was just still. No more sarcasm. No more bad puns about the dog's name. No more tug-of-war over the blanket at 3 a.m. Just silence. Not hostile. Not cold. Just hollow. We started sleeping in separate rooms. Not because we talked about it, but because he would fall asleep on the couch every night and I gave up asking him to come to bed. One night, I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just stir-fry and rice. He sat across from me, eyes glued to some spot on the table like it was whispering secrets to him. I reached for the salt, but it was closer to him. "Can you pass the salt?" I said softly. He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't even seem to hear. I stared at him for a few seconds before quietly getting up and grabbing it myself. Not a single reaction from him. It was in that moment I realized. I wasn't loving a man anymore. I was loving a ghost inside his skin. And I hated myself for resenting him. But I did. I resented every dead-eyed nod. Every day I woke up hoping he'd crack a joke. Every hour I spent researching therapists and reading forums and fighting this battle alone. People kept saying, "He's lucky to have you." No one asked if I was okay. No one told me that loving someone through their darkest hour might mean dimming your own light until you forget what warmth feels like. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I whispered to no one. Maybe love isn't about saving someone. Maybe it's knowing when to let go. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just left the toothbrush by the door. His, not mine. A small, stupid gesture. But I wanted him to know I was still thinking about him even as I left. The morning was gray. Rain threatened the sky, but never fully arrived. I stood in the doorway for a long time, holding the note. Just staring at it. It wasn't long. Just a few sentences. "I love you. But I can't keep dying beside you while you learn to live again. I'll always want you to be okay. But I have to go be okay too." He wasn't there. He was at a follow-up appointment. I planned it that way. Because if I saw him, those eyes, that hollow sadness, I'd stay. Again. So I folded the note and left it on the kitchen counter, right next to the dog's leash. He never liked walking her in the mornings, but I always did. She knew something was different. Whimpered the whole time I packed. One suitcase. No drama. Just release. I looked around the apartment before I left. Our photos were still up. The ones from the beach trip. That blurry one where we're laughing too hard. The empty mug he left on the counter 3 days ago. The slippers I brought him in the hospital. The slippers he stopped wearing. All of it was a still life of a love that used to live here. We were supposed to get old, I whispered. And in my head, a reel played. Laughter over burnt pancakes. Him twirling me in the kitchen. Talking about baby names. The moment I found him, half dead and slipping. The silence afterward. The voice in my head narrated the pain with a calm I didn't know I had anymore. Sometimes, love isn't leaving the light on. Sometimes, it's turning it off and walking away in the dark because you've run out of candles. I closed the door behind me. Not with a bang. But with the softest click.